All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, you are all welcome. My name is Efe Agari. I will be the anchor person for tonight. And like I mentioned earlier, our guest speakers are already seated. Just like we said, we are starting exactly 7:10. With us this evening are two guest speakers that will be taking us on the international leadership and the peace and security courses that we took on this Zoom session tonight. First tonight, we have Ahmed Gobi as our first guest speaker. Ahmed Gobi is the Group General Manager slash SHRO BP, Commercial and Anglophone Dangote Cement. Also, you are welcome, sir. Also, we have Zainab Omotoyosi Shitu Adenuga. She is a seasoned lawyer and a law teacher at the Department of Private and Business Law, Fante University, Osogbo, Osun State. Mother, you are welcome. She will be taking us on peace and security. So, Sir Ahmed Gobi will be taking us on international leadership. He will be coming in first. After his presentation, you have the privilege to ask your questions, and our questions are going to be very brief so that he can do justice to all our questions tonight. So I will be leaving the floor for Ahmed Gobi to take over. You're welcome, sir. Kindly unmute your mic, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much. Good evening. I hope you can hear me clearly.
Good evening, sir.
Thank you.
Nice
Thank
to
you.
have
Good
you
evening.
tonight.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me join the call. And good evening, participants. It's nice to be with you once again to have this conversation. I've been asked to speak on international leadership. Let me start by apologizing that because I've been quite busy, I also got this invitation a bit late, and so I was unable to put together some slides for this presentation as I always do, but I will try after tonight to ensure that the organizers at least do get my presentation across to you. I will just urge you to please listen carefully to me, take as much notes as you can, and during the Q&A, of course, you can ask questions to get clarifications around whatever it is that I may have said. But rest assured, I will try and get across the slides or the paper for this presentation to the organizers so you can all have it. I've been asked to speak, like I said, on international leadership. And let me just begin by saying my understanding of international leadership, of course, refers to the ability of one person or a leader to effectively sorry, if I see some people raising their hands, I don't know if it's something you want to address before I go ahead. Mr. Agari?
Yes, I'm here with you, sir.
Yes, I said I did see some people raising their hands. I don't know if it's if there's a reason for this, or I can just go ahead.
Hello, sir. It's not necessary. I will please, for everyone raising up their hands now, please lower your hand. And in addition, Sir Gobi, everything about this course have been done in the class. All we need is just to give it a face you don't necessarily need a slide. Speak with them for 45 minutes, then use the other time to ask question.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much then. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Leadership aspect.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much.
All right.
All right then. Okay. So as I was saying, international leadership, of course, refers to that ability to effectively lead and influence individuals, the ability to lead and influence organizations, and of course, the ability to lead and also influence nations across different cultures, across different languages, and even across different political systems. Oftentimes, this involves an understanding, and the ability to navigate the complexities, of global operations. And this, of course, will apply to those of us who work in businesses. It involves, of course, building relationships. It also, of course, involves growing and developing networks across various borders. It involves adopting management and leadership styles which suit the diverse needs and, of course, the expectations of people from different backgrounds. This is what international leadership is typically about. Now, the question then is, who are international leaders? Now, international leaders are typically, people who are skilled, at cross-cultural communication, people who can communicate across different cultures, people who are very skillful and adept at negotiation and collaboration, with other people and with other functions. International leaders also are people who possess an open-minded and global perspective, about issues and about activities and about matters, of course, that come before them or to their attention. They embrace diversity while also recognizing, of course, the value of the different perspectives and approaches that others may bring to the table, or others may also bring, of course, to the discussion. International leaders can also be described as those who are knowledgeable, about global trends, economic trends, global political trends, and global social issues. They are able to use their knowledge of all these global trends, of course, to leverage, and make informed decisions such that they are able to also effectively, of course, address global challenges. Now, such leaders expectedly, should have some skills and some traits, like I have said. Now, I'll try to outline some of the traits and some of the skills that we expect people in international leadership roles, should have. And the first of these traits, as far as I understand, and as far as my own international experience is concerned, of course, is cultural intelligence. And I speak about cultural intelligence because that is the trait and skill that the international leader, of course, requires to help him understand and appreciate the different cultural norms, the different values, and the different communication styles of the people he's going to meet, people in the businesses he's going to lead, and people in the environment, of course, where he's going to probably work, or relate. The second, as I always say, is emotional intelligence. Now, and by emotional intelligence, we mean, of course, first being aware of who you are yourself and how you have come to assume this international leadership position or international leadership role, being also socially aware. And being socially aware, of course, is being aware of the emotions of others, whether friends, whether colleagues at work, whether members of the family, but particularly colleagues at work with whom you are likely to be working, or with whom, of course, your paths will cross. So self-awareness and social awareness are key traits and key attributes of emotional intelligence that an international leader, must have. So this relates, of course, like I said, to being able to understand and manage one's own emotions, as well as, of course, empathizing and connecting with others with whom, you may have to work. Now, the third trait, in my understanding, of course, will be the ability of the international leader, of course, to adapt, and by adaptability, we're talking about being flexible and being open to change. Change that you may encounter in the course, of your leadership role as an international leader. And of course, being able to quickly adjust whatever plans you may have, and whatever strategies you may have developed in response to new and unexpected challenges or new and unexpected circumstances. Now, the fourth will be the global mindset, and this is to say that for an international leader, you are expected, of course, to have a very broad and inclusive perspective of happenings around you, even if your role is that of an HR advisor or an HR manager, even if your role is that of a financial controller or a chief financial officer, if your role is that of, say, a plant director or a factory manager, if your role is that of a CEO, in some other country or some other assembly where you have the opportunity to lead people of diverse cultural background, you must have a global mindset, and that requires the leader to have a broad and an inclusive perspective, being aware, of course, of global economic, global social, and global political trends, and of course, being able to integrate this knowledge into the decision-making process. That is what makes an international leader a good leader. Then we talk about cross-cultural communication. It is the ability of the international leader, of course, to effectively communicate, to effectively, of course, bridge gaps across various cultural, linguistic, and geographical boundaries. The ability to mend fences, to ability to build bridges against whatever gaps and whatever divides, that an international leader may find himself or herself, is that cross-cultural communication skills that we're saying the international leader must have. Now, the sixth for me will be relationship building. And by relationship building, of course, we're talking here about building trust between co-workers, building rapport, and of course, building a network of people from different backgrounds, a network of people with diverse cultural backgrounds, a network of people, of course, with whom the leader is able to collaborate and to work effectively with, even if the team is a multicultural team. Now, the seventh for me will be strategic thinking. That for one to excel in a role as an international leader, then you must have the ability and the competence for strategic thinking. And by strategic thinking, of course, we're talking about being able to think critically and strategically, and that every strategy or every recommendation or every suggestion that comes from you or that you put forward is one, of course, that will positively impact the business or impact the organization which you work for. So not only are you expected as an international leader to be able to think critically and think strategically, you will also be expected, of course, to develop strategies, and develop plans with which you intend to also implement the strategies. And you must while doing this, you must then take into account, of course, the global context, the global trends, and what is happening, of course, in the global arena. Now, the eighth of these traits, and I'll leave it at this, is that one that I call the ethical and responsible leadership trait or leadership skills. That this international leader must be one who demonstrates integrity, one who demonstrates stability, one who demonstrates accountability, and one who also demonstrates responsibility, and a commitment, of course, to pursuing ethical practices and ethical standards, wherever it is he needs to make decisions and in all aspects, of his or her leadership. That, again, is a critical skill that an international leader, of course, must have. Now, to round up, I like to say, of course, that international leadership is increasingly becoming very important, in today's interconnected, and globalized world. We all say, and we all understand that the world today is a global village. So international leadership as, as a key quality, the quality for international leadership, which is a key quality that people who aspire to lead global businesses and global organizations must have, is something that, of course, plays very, very critical role, in fostering understanding, in fostering collaboration, and of course, in fostering sustainable growth and development among nations and among organizations. Now, I have had the privilege, of having worked outside Nigeria for my employers. I've had the privilege of having been deployed to work in Ethiopia, in Tanzania, and in Zambia. Now, when I went to work in Ethiopia, for example, I did find and I did realize that the Ethiopians are fiercely nationalistic. And they're fiercely nationalistic because, of course, every Ethiopian prides himself on the fact that their country, Ethiopia, was the only country in Africa that was not colonized. So, because I knew this from my study of history, and because I also had related with colleagues who had worked in this place before, particularly at the head office of the African Union, I then, of course, from the onset, was able to determine how I intended to relate, with the people that I was going to be working with. Because our culture as Nigerians is completely different, of course, from the Ethiopian culture. I needed to understand their cultural norms and cultural nuances. For example, I was to find out that while, for example, it is okay. I mean, sometimes in Nigeria, not that it is okay. If I was speaking to a Nigerian colleague and I raise my voice, for example, he's likely to understand that I am getting emotional, on account of the conversation that we are having or the discussion that is going on. I was to find out that if, for example, you are speaking to an Ethiopian, and you raise your voice, not only does it take offense, it is something that, for example, they will go and report you to the authorities to say, no, this guy raised my voice talking to me. Very simple things like just a conversation between two people. I'm underscoring this. I'm saying this to underscore, that of course, there are various traits, which one who is an international leader must have, but you need to understand these, to be able to fit in, of course, into the environment, and the culture within which you are working. When I went to work in Zambia, it was a lot more easier for me because, for example, Zambia is a common law country, just like Nigeria, and that's because, of course, we both belong to the Commonwealth. So you'll find that it is easier for a Nigerian to acclimatize and to acculturize in a place like Zambia. Now, I also found that, of course, even in terms of managing businesses, the setup of businesses in Zambia, of course, was similar to what we had in Nigeria. So integrating myself in Zambia when I went to work there was a lot much easier, of course, than when I went to work in Ethiopia. I'm just giving this example to underscore, the fact that, yes, as an international leader, there are some key skills that you are expected to have, and key skills which will help you, of course, in the performance of your duties. So, in summary, what I'm saying is to be a very good international leader, you must have one, cultural intelligence. You must have emotional intelligence or EQ. You must be able to adapt, to the changes you are going to find in the new environment that you are probably going to work or serve. You must have a global mindset such that you are able, to understand and be aware of global economic, social, and political trends. So I mean, because these are things that will also influence or affect your decision. Now, that you must also, of course, have cross-cultural communication skills and ability, so that in your communication, you then will not offend the other party, when you are communicating. Of course, then you must have relationship building skills, which will help you, of course, to build trust between you and to build rapport and to build, your network. Friend. You must also have strategic thinking capabilities, which will help you to plan your strategies and, of course, to think critically. And finally, like I said, you must have, the ability, or your watchword must be ethical and responsible leadership, which will allow you, of course, to demonstrate integrity and accountability in whatever it is that you do. And you will show commitment, of course, to ethical practices in the workplace. Thank you very much for allowing me the opportunity to speak. I will take questions if there are any, and I also welcome comments, on the presentation. Thank you very much, Mr. Agari. Over to you. Mr. Agari?
Hello, sir. I believe.
Yes, I am. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you very much for that wonderful presentation. Please let the hands go down for now. I want to really appreciate you for that powerful presentation once again. Thank you very much, sir. Please, we'll be going into the questions segment of this Zoom section tonight on international leadership. Please go straight to your question. No beating around the bush. Why do I have to study international leadership? What is the value of international leadership to me? Don't start telling us stories. And Sir Ahmed Gobi, please, we want the response to be in seconds so that we can deal with a whole lot of questions before we move to the next segment. So for those of us who have questions, just raise up your hand. We'll give you the privilege to questions. And we'll be spending the next 20 minutes this question segment. Okay, so for those of us that have questions, just raise up your hand. We'll give you the privilege to ask your question. So the first person we have here tonight is Cyrus. If you don't have a question, don't raise your hand. Please, have a question, do not raise your hand, please. All right, so Cyrus Johnson, unmute your mic. You have 1 second straight to your question. Cyrus Johnson.
Okay, thank you so much. So, actually, thank you for the presentation. I just want to know how can we better achieve the international leadership? Thank you.
How can we better achieve international leadership skills? Like I did say, of course, there are skills that are cultivated over time, but there are also skills, of course, that you learn from opportunities, such as one that you have now. I have tried to list out some of the skills. I will expect that for one who is interested in international leadership and international leadership opportunities, I mean, you will go ahead, to read up some of the things that I probably, I've said here. One, of course, to test their veracity, but also to also imbibe additional knowledge. So you need to have skills, like I said, cultural intelligence, emotional intelligence, adaptability, global mindset, cross-cultural communication, like I did mention, relationship building skills, strategic thinking skills, and of course, you need to be one who is interested, of course, in ethical leadership, and of course, responsible leadership. So these are, of course, skills that you build over the course of your career and over the course of your work. Yes, you may be taught some in the classroom or in discussions as we have here, but they are skills that you develop over time while you're working, of course, through your experiences. Thank you, Cyrus.
Thank you very much, sir. The next person on the line is Mizra Yosna. Unmute your mic. Sorry if I didn't pronounce your name properly.
Good evening. How are you? It's fine. Thank you for the presentation. My question is, how do successful international leaders navigate through different political and regulatory challenges in different countries whilst maintaining an effective leadership?
Okay. Thank you very much, Misra. I think what is important is if you're going to be an international leader, of course, I mean, we all must have the requisite qualifications, perhaps even some requisite experience. But how do you then navigate, say, regulatory changes, that may happen? I will speak to my experiences. I have worked in Ethiopia, I have worked in Tanzania, I have worked in Zambia. And because my role is in HR, and because one of the reasons I was also sent there is because I'm a lawyer whose forte is also in employment and labor laws. The first thing, for example, that I do when I get to each of these countries, or that I did when I get to some of these countries, is to try to understand, because I'm in HR, for example, what do their labor laws say? So that I do not go with the mindset that what happens in Nigeria, in terms of what our labor laws provide, is what I will also find there, or that the provisions of our labor law will also be applicable there. I'm also very mindful to understand what the provisions, the ILO conventions, are, such that even if I am unable to fall back on perhaps the labor proclamation in the country, I do have, of course, the convention, the ILO conventions, of course, relating to work, relating to, of course, women at work, relating to hours of work, relating to safety, and so on and so forth, that I have them at the tips of my hand, or at least very close for me to relate So to answer your question, the first thing to do for one who wants to be a very good global or international leader is that wherever you find yourself, you must try to understand what are those regulatory provisions that supports or that guides and that regulates, of course, the performance of your role or the performance of your function, in these places. It was in the course of this, for example, when I got to Zambia, that I discovered that, for example, in Zambia, the
Sagobi, are you still there? Sagobi, are you there? I think Sagobi is not close. Just hold on, please, 1 minute. Please hold on. Let's get him back. It's like network will kick him out. Just hold on for him to come up again. But I believe Misra's question has been well taken care of. Network has kicked him out. Please, for those of us dropping notes on the chat box, especially those with the challenge of audio. Now, when you connect to a Zoom meeting, at the base of your device, left-hand side specifically, you will see a microphone sign and a video symbol with a strike through on red. If you don't tap on the microphone to get it connected, you will not hear anything. You will not hear anything. So always get that done when connecting on the Zoom, please, so that you can hear everything that is being discussed. Okay? Let me search for Gobi again. I mean, Gobi is off. Okay, let's see. Just hold on, let's see how to get him back on. Please just hold on. We are trying to get in touch with the guest speaker because we don't know actually what led to him leaving, but we are very sure it was a network challenge. Okay, so just be patient while we get him on board. Thank you. Please just hold on. It's coming up now. I think it's needed to connect his audio so that we can proceed. Just that this has eaten our time. Let's see what we can get out of this. It's coming up. Let's be patient. I guess the network from his end is not helping matters at all. Okay, Sir Gobi, kindly unmute your mic. Welcome back. Sorry for that break in transmission.
Very good.
Welcome, sir. Okay,
My very sincere apology.
Yeah, sure. Okay, let's take a few questions so that we can maximize the time. Mr. Chance Cletus, unmute your mic. Please, let's be fast with the question. Mr. Chance Cletus, if you are there, unmute.
Okay, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Please, yes, sir, I need to know, what are the pros and the cons of being an international leader in Nigeria as opposed to advanced countries like America, UK, and Canada? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think, of course, there's a lot of advantage, of course, with global opportunities, and of course, opportunities for one to go showcase his leadership, or for his or her leadership, when you have such, of course, cross postings, as we call them, or sometimes secondments on international assignments. The advantage, of course, is the experience that it gives the individual when you assume such roles, because you now have an international and a global experience as opposed to that experience or your experience, which perhaps is limited to your local environment. So I think the important thing is that it also helps to prepare one for even higher responsibilities. When you have the opportunity, of course, for cross-posting, for international posting, the kind of experience, of course, that comes with it is one that prepares you, to assume higher roles and to assume, of course, more senior roles when they come your way. Now, what are the disadvantages? And my response here may be a bit pedestrian. If you do not, for example, if your posting is not such that also allows you, for example, to move or to relocate with your family, for example, if you are the married time, the truth is that such postings sometimes have even negatively impacted, of course, family life. The other thing, of course, is that we've also found people who have gone on international postings return to their work and they are unable to reintegrate themselves, back into that environment, that culture, and that work, for example, which they used to do before. I have seen experiences, or I have had experiences where some of my colleagues who had gone on international postings, and with very great international leadership qualities, and returned to the business, only for them to resign after a few months. It could either be because they no longer find what they are doing here as challenging as the opportunity for cross-posting or for these international secondments had provided them. Oftentimes, of course, when you go on cross-postings and international assignments, the pay and the compensation itself is also a lot richer and better. And so sometimes when people come back and they have to come back, into the same system that they had left behind, perhaps the same earnings or earnings that are slightly, of course, a little bit maybe higher than what they used to earn, but perhaps not commensurate to what they were earning when they were in cross-posting or this international experience. It's been known, of course, to cause demotivation amongst people. It's also been known, of course, to then cause such people to begin to look out. But all in all, international leadership, of course, international and cross postings provides one the opportunity, of course, to gain a lot of experience with respect and the experiences, of course, that you require to function as a global leader and as an international leader, either in business or even in other kinds of organizations. Thank you very much for the question. Yeah.
Thank you very much, sir, for that wonderful response. Ayuta Samaila, unmute your mic. Ayuta Samaila, unmute your mic. Are you there? Unmute your mic and ask a question. Ayuta Samaila is not there. Okay. Celestine Aleke. Celestine Aleke, unmute your mic. Celestine.
Can you hear me?
Yes, good evening. Go ahead. These people are not here. Okay, let's make progress. Lugard Osuma, unmute your mic.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Good evening. Please speak to the microphone.
Okay. My question is, in an organization as a leader, how do you create a balance between colleagues or other leaders that come from different nationalities? You are working in an organization where you have different nationalities at the same time. How do you balance your work relationship with them in order to avoid conflicts and misunderstanding? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. In the course of my presentation, first I have said that one of the things, one of the qualities that we require as to be a very good international leader, or to relate well or to do well in an international role, of course, is emotional intelligence. And I did say that to be a very good leader, either locally or even internationally, you need to be aware of your own emotions. Now, not only do you then become aware of your emotions, you must also be aware, and being aware of your emotion is what we call self-awareness. Then you have to also be aware of the emotions of people you have to relate with or you have to work with, which is social awareness. Now, that social awareness, of course, is what then enables you to empathize with others, perhaps when you find them in some situations. So yes, for you to be able to manage a relationship between people from different cultures, different backgrounds, perhaps different countries, you need a lot of emotional intelligence to be able to do that. Secondly, you also must have what I call cross-cultural communication abilities. And this is understanding, for example, that the way you will communicate with your Nigerian colleague and they will immediately understand or get the message you are trying to pass will not be the same way you will probably communicate with an Indian or a Pakistani colleague who is also working with you, because some things that you will say, for example, even in the workplace, for example, sometimes we speak pidgin as Nigerians. You may not be able to speak pidgin to someone who is not an African. People from other African countries, maybe if you are to have a colleague, for example, who is Ghanaian, he may even understand what you're saying. The meat of what I am saying is that you require even cross-cultural, skills and abilities to be able to relate, with people of diverse background and of diverse culture in the workplace. That is in addition, of course, to the emotional intelligence and the EQ, traits and skills that I said international leaders must have. So, those would be my two suggestions on how, of course, you get to relate very well with people who are from cross-cultural or different cultural backgrounds in the workplace. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sir Ahmed Gobi, for that wonderful response. Doing justice to all this. I think because of time, we'll just take one more person before we proceed to the peace and security segment of this Zoom meeting tonight. Okay, so it's going to be Nelly Kenneth. Nelly Kenneth. Okay, yes. Nelly Kenneth. Unmute your mic. Nelly Kenneth, unmute your mic. It's like Nelly Kenneth is not there. Okay, let's. Patience Adeda. Patience Adeda. Unmute your mic. Patience Adeda. Patience Adeda, unmute your mic. Patience Adeda, unmute your mic.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Yes, please. Thank you. Yeah, good. Thank you so much for the presentation. It's a privilege for me to be part of this learning class. I want to find out what's the relationship or the difference between international leadership and also global leadership. And then is it because the name differs, or are they related? Then secondly, the skills learned from as an international leadership, can you use it as a civil servant for as a civil servant in your place of work? Because there were some skills mentioned by the presenter. Can it go? Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you very much. International leadership and global leadership relate to one and the same thing. Because we're saying, I mean, if you are a global leader, you are an international leader. It also means that you probably have had the opportunity, to perhaps work, either through cross-posting or some other opportunities, of course, in a global or international assignment. And whether you are working in the US, in the UN, or you are working in Ghana, or even in Sierra Leone, you will require the same set of skills, as an international leader to work in either of these countries. Perhaps what may differ again will be around the culture, of the people you are working in. And that's where, when I spoke about cross-cultural intelligence comes in. That's where it becomes important. And that's when you then understand, how do I manage, of course, the cultural nuances of the people that I'm working with in a place like Ghana and in a place like Sierra Leone, as opposed, of course, to, how I will manage same if I was working, of course, locally. Now, so the second part of your question, again, no knowledge and no experience, is wasted. And if you do get the opportunity of a cross-functional posting and an international assignment, I am quite sure that whatever it is that you learn during the course of this international assignment or international deployment or engagement is also one that can be brought to bear, on your work as a civil servant. If there are innovations, it's also possible to come and share such innovations with your employer. And of course, at the end of the day, with your colleagues in the place of work. So yeah, the answer is yes. Whatever it is that you gain from your international experience or your experience as a global thought leader or as a global leader is quite important, and it is one, of course, that your employers must be willing to allow you share, and one that you must also, of course, be ready to share with others in the workplace. Thank you. I hope I have managed to answer that question. Over to you, Mr. Agari.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ahmed Gobi. Nice being with you tonight. Want to really appreciate you for taking our time to be part of this Zoom session tonight. We are really blessed. I believe everyone in this meeting tonight had learned one or two things that will be of value to every one of us. Once again, thank you very much. And in a short while, we'll be going over to the peace and security segment of this meeting tonight. And we have our guest speaker, Zainab Omotoyosi Shitu Adenuga, a seasoned lawyer and a law teacher at the Department of Private and Business Law, Fante University, Osogbo, Osun State. I believe she's here. And before I bring her on board, I want to assure every one of us tonight that this meeting is being recorded. For those of us who are saying they came in late because of one issue or the other, don't worry, you are going to get the recorded version of this meeting and you will meet up with us. Before we go, once again, as Ahmed Gobi, we want to really appreciate you on behalf of the leadership of Plage Metaverse. We say thank you for coming and God bless you. Zainab Shitu Adenuga, kindly unmute your mic. You have the floor now. Madam Zainab, please unmute your mic. While she is unmuting her mic, please, this segment is just going to last for 25 minutes while we use the other 30 minutes for questions. And please let your questions be in seconds, and we'll do well to give you the answers in seconds as well. Thank you very much. Madam Zainab, over to you. Madam Zainab Shitu, over to you. Kindly unmute your mic now. Please, for those of us whose hands are still up, kindly lower them. Madam Zainab Shitu, are you there? Madam Zainab Shitu, we can't hear you.
It's really good to be here again.
All right, nice. You're welcome.
Thank you, sir. Can you hear me now, sir?
Yes, loud and clear.
Yes. Now, I wouldn't want to waste much time this night. So I would like to delve into what international peace or what peace and security is at first. Peace is the absence of war. It means the cessation of war. While security on the other side means the feeling of safety and protection from threats, which empowers nations and individuals to pursue their growth. Now, international peace and security is very, very important. But as important as international peace and security is, diplomacy is like the cornerstone of this. Now, maintaining international peace and security requires a multi-pronged approach, a multifaceted approach. Diplomacy is part of it. Collective security is part of it. Economic cooperation is part of it, and respect for human rights. That is why we have a number of human rights laws violations and helps to protect human rights. Now, let's focus on diplomacy. What is diplomacy? Diplomacy is an international relations. It is an essential tool for building bridges and fostering dialogues between nations. Diplomacy is the act of, bringing communities, bringing international nations to a roundtable conference, sitting down and speaking as regards fostering cooperation amongst them. At its core, the belief that communication and understanding can lead to peaceful coexistence and mutually beneficial solutions. Through various channels, diplomacy allows nations to, one, take preventative measures. That is, diplomacy allows nations to foresee that a war is breaching. So when they foresee, they can quickly put a stop. They can quickly halt the war or before it takes place. So these preventative measures can can ensure that issues are addressed before they eventually escalate into full-time armed conflict or full-time war. This could also involve confidence-building measures, mediation efforts, and promoting arms control agreements. These preventative measures can be as simple as, for example, if a diplomat from a country sees that there are let's say they are deploying some soldiers, they are deploying some troops around the border. The diplomat can say, hey, we noticed that you are moving troops near our border. Is everything okay? And if things are not okay, both parties can sit down and try to address misunderstandings between them or amongst them. Aside from these preventative measures, we also have conflict resolution. That is one of the core principles of diplomacy. Diplomacy allows for parties to resolve conflicts. When conflict erupts, it serves as a platform for negotiation, for ceasefire agreements, and the creation of framework for lasting peace. I would like to also use an example. Conflict resolution can come in form of, for example, let's say in a country, let's say in a country wants to build a dam like a river, yes, and the other country, probably they share the same river. The other country worries that if they build a dam, it will cut off water supply into their own country. Diplomats, like skilled negotiators, they will come together and talk things out. Okay, what do we do? How do we address this issue between these two nations so as not to allow things escalate, whereby we will now have armed conflict? Then both parties can come into an agreement to say, okay, let's build a smaller dam, or let's share waterways, or let's see how both parties can benefit one way or the other without one party losing. Let's make it a win-win situation. So that's how conflict resolution comes, settling disputes between these parties too. Then also, diplomacy also comes in form of maintaining international order. Diplomacy plays a crucial role in upholding international law and promoting rules-based order. Through treaties, conventions, multilateral institutions, diplomacy also establishes a framework for peaceful coexistence and discourages unilateral action that can destabilize global security. Through diplomacy, the United Nations have come, there have been so many declarations. We have, a good example is Declaration Against Violence, Declaration on Elimination of Violence Against Women. We also have CEDAW, Convention on Elimination of Violence Against Women. We have our own African Charter. We have so many laws. We have Maputo Protocol and so on and so forth. These are laws, these are convention treaties that are formed, that come in form of diplomatic, that have the mission of diplomatic mission that wants to ensure that parties live in a friendly atmosphere and ensure that parties can come to negotiation without, going into war. Now, let's look at real examples of this diplomacy. We can look at the Iran nuclear deal in 2015. In 2015, there were heightened tensions between Iran and the West. And because of this heightened tension, the international community, that is the P5 plus one, the United States, United Kingdom, France, China, Russia, and Germany, they reached a landmark agreement. And this agreement was that Iran agreed to limit its nuclear program in exchange for lifting economic sanctions. So they lifted economic sanctions against Iran. And because of that, Iran also said, oh, I'm going to limit nuclear program. Of course, if Iran does not say they want to limit the nuclear program, of the whole world will be shattered because of these, their nuclear weapons and so on and so forth. So because of the diplomatic efforts of the P5+1, they were able to come together to, to ensure that the Iran nuclear deal came into force. Then also we have the Colombian peace process. The Colombian peace process happened between 2012 and 2016. And it was as a result of a brutal war, civil war, that raged in Colombia for 50 years. The Colombian government and a revolutionary armed forces of Colombia, FARC, engaged in extensive negotiations, and they came to an agreement. And as a result of that, the conflict was resolved. Also, we also have the Paris Agreement on Climate Change, when all world parties were called together to say, look at it, look at our atmosphere. We need to do something about greenhouse emission. Everybody is just flaring gases into the atmosphere. And because they are flaring gases, it is reducing, it's changing the weather. And at the end of the day, when weather changes, it can have adverse effects on international, on the international space, can add adverse effects on the global world. Everybody would be affected. And because of that, there were extensive diplomatic efforts to prevent, to make a peaceful solution and to mediate on that issue. Also, the recent Russia-Ukraine war 2022 that happened in 2022. Also, there's some highlights of diplomacy there too. There are extensive diplomatic efforts made to prevent war. You see that at the beginning of this Nigerian students were in Ukraine. They had to run to neighboring countries for safety, and it was really intense when it started. But later on, you find out that compared to the war now in Palestine and Israel, the war in Ukraine and the Russia-Ukraine war is not as intense as the war in Palestine. Mediate and find a peace. Although the war is still going on, but the extent at which the war is going has reduced. If you come down to Africa, the Liberian Civil War that happened in 1985 to 2003, also we can also see some elements of diplomatic missions there. The ECOWAS played a critical role in bringing the warring parties to a negotiating table, and there were peace talks between Accra and Liberia, and they signed a peace agreement in 2003. If we come down to Nigeria, we will see that Nigeria is a regional power in Africa. We have our own form of diplomacy, diplomatic missions too, that were done. In 2009, the Niger Delta conflict that happened in 2009, that faced, people from the Niger Delta side were clamoring against the environmental degradation, oil spills. Companies like our oil producing companies, they were spilling oil into their water, and because they were spilling oil, they didn't have clean water. They were deprived of clean water. And because of that, of course, if they don't have water, if you don't have basic amenities to live, you cannot live properly. Then also, these companies were also flaring gases into the atmosphere. And because they were flaring gases into the atmosphere, the weather they were breathing in was really bad. There was a time I heard that when they sneeze, what comes out from there, the mucus that comes out becomes black. And it is as a result of the gas flaring. So because of that, there was a diplomatic effort. Nigerian government under the late President Muhammadu Yar'Adua embarked on a multifaceted approach, and they offered amnesty to the militants. Some of the militants surrendered their weapons. They engaged in dialogue with the community leaders and so on and so forth. And because of that, it gave birth to the amnesty program. That is also diplomacy in action. Then Nigeria as a country has also played some peacekeeping roles in Africa through ECOWAS by sending for providing aid to countries that are warring when they are warring. Now, we should also, it is important to acknowledge that Nigeria's diplomatic efforts haven't been that successful because Nigeria itself is faced with so many internal securities that has been happening over the years. So the principles of diplomacy has a way of fostering peace and ensuring that things go the right way. People do not consider war instead of peace. If you look at the part of diplomacy, like I said, it is faced with so many challenges. We have national interests. Most times, nations, they have their own interests, and these interests might collide or can create friction whereby they would not want to, countries might not want to make compromises. So because of I gave out the country that wants to build a dam and the other one that says no, you cut off water supply. So both parties are fighting for their own national interests, and skilled diplomats will want to have to negotiate with them to come so that both parties can come to a common ground. Then also misinformation and propaganda. We know that in today's society, misinformation is abound and propaganda is abound, and this can erode and hinder open communication. So diplomacy must contend with these challenges and promote factual dialogue. Also, we have geopolitical tensions, historical grievances, ideological differences, competition for resources. This can create deep-seated tensions that will make diplomatic solutions very difficult to achieve. Now, how do we strengthen diplomatic roles? We can strengthen diplomatic roles by investing in diplomatic resources, by ensuring that we have skilled negotiators, skilled diplomatic institutions. Our diplomats are truly people who know their onions, who know what they're supposed to do. Then the country must also invest in areas that demonstrate a nation's commitment to peaceful solutions. Then also, international institutions like the United Nations must provide crucial platforms for dialogue and collective actions. Supporting these institutions strengthens the global framework for peace and security. Also, there must be public diplomacy must be engaged on a wider level. Public awareness and understanding of diplomatic efforts are very, very essential. Civil societies must be engaged. They must be engaged. People have to start talking. People have to get educated about public diplomacy and the effect it will have on a supportive environment. There must be supportive environment for diplomacy so that it will foster international cooperation. In conclusion, while the world faces numerous complex security challenges, diplomacy offers a powerful and enduring approach to building peace by promoting dialogue, fostering understanding, and finding common ground. Diplomacy can help us navigate a more peaceful future for generations to come. So in achieving international peace and security, there's no way we can achieve it without talking about diplomacy. Both parties can sit down and must sit down and come to a common ground. It is because of diplomacy, that is why we have Olympics game. Countries can come together every 4 years to play games. It is if countries do not agree, if there is nothing like diplomacy, then countries cannot come together to say, okay, we want to engage in a friendly match every 4 years. It is because of diplomacy. That is why when there is war, when war breaks out in a country, the diplomats, our diplomatic mission in Nigeria would connect with other diplomatic missions outside in evacuating our citizens or their citizens all over the country. It is because of these diplomatic missions. And this moves towards, ensuring that there is international peace and security in the world. Thank you very much.
All right, Zainab Shitu Adenuga. Thank you very much for that explicit presentation. It was awesome. Thank you very much. Okay, we're going straight now to take some questions. Please, like I said earlier on, let your question be brief, straight to the point, and Mother Zainab, please let the answers be brief as possible so that we can take a lot of questions in this peace and security segment of this Zoom meeting. All right. Okay, so let's go now. Sunday Asukwo, unmute your mic. You have the floor now. Sunday Asukwo.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Please
My
speak to the
question is, how can an individual contribute to international peace and security as an individual in a country?
Mother Zena, please, you leave your microphone on. Don't mute yourself back. Okay, let me. Mother Zena, please unmute your mic now.
Thank you very much. Now, the question is, how can an individual contribute to international peace? First of all, I would say educate yourself. Learn about different cultures, different religions, historical conflicts. Then also challenge stereotypes. Speak out about against generalization. Promote respectful dialogue. Then support cultural exchange between parties. Advocate for peace. Spread awareness. Donate, if you have money, donate to peace building efforts. If you can donate 8, continue to donate 8. Live peacefully. Promote kindness and respect. So those are the things you can do to contribute to international peace as an individual.
All right. Thank you very much, Zena, for that. Donate to peaceful causes, give aids, and speak when it is necessary for you to speak. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir.
Noble Kofi. All right, Noble Kofi, please unmute your mic. And
thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'm Noble Kofi, a police officer from Ghana. I want to ask.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. Per our rules here, as a police officer, you need to attain a certain age or years in the service before you can attain a higher education. As I have taken it upon myself to acquire this knowledge and acquire this certificate, I want to know how the certificate can help me in my service as a police officer here in Ghana.
Mother Zainab, are you there?
I'm here, but I didn't hear his question.
His question is, he is a police officer from Ghana. Acquiring this knowledge, what impact will this knowledge have on him as a police officer? That is, having this certificate on international peace and security. Thank you.
He said having what? Sorry, the network is breaking. So he said, I heard to the extent that he said he's a police officer.
We can't hear you. Yes.
He's a police officer and he wants to know what, sir?
The impact of this knowledge. How will it help him in his profession as a police officer?
Yes. This knowledge is very, very important because you are a police officer. In fact, because you are also part of the law enforcement agents. You are a law enforcement agent. So it's very important because, when we are talking about violating human rights or fostering peaceful environment, you are a stakeholder. You're a stakeholder. And I don't know, generally, there has been so many things about police brutality and police violating human rights. So if you empower yourself knowing about international peace and security, how it is very important, then you'll be able to bring that knowledge into your occupation. You'll be able to see that, yes, dialogue, it's not every time that things should escalate. Dialogue can be used, negotiation can come in. And also, you'd also be somebody that would challenge stereotypes. If there's a particular stereotype that people know the police to always exhibit, then by having this certificate, oh no, this is against what I have learned in the International Peace and Security class. You challenge stereotypes, and it also helps you to be able to be more effective at work. I hope you have gotten one or two things from this. So it helps you to be able to, to challenge stereotypes, to be able to talk about peace talks, supporting peaceful solution. You raise your voice against war and violence in your community. And also by ensuring that you are also a part of peace building efforts. I'm sure after this class now, you want to be part of any peace building effort or anything, any talks about peace or anything against violence. So that's just it, sir.
Thank you very much, Mother Zainab. You have done justice to his question. All right, let's move on. Sarah Benjamin, unmute your mic. Sarah Benjamin.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sarah Benjamin from Nigeria, currently in Akure.
Welcome.
My question is pertaining this diplomacy, respect for human rights. In Nigeria here, this situation of insecurity, the banditry that is happening in this country, and again, the Niger Delta that they made the peace among them. Till now, Niger Delta don't have good water to drink because there's this spillage of oil in their community and there's no good water. And we know that they have done the peace and security, they have resolved the peace there, but still they don't have good water to drink. And back to this banditry, what is the international body doing about this? How can they help? Because lives are going every day, most especially in the north. And you talk of the kidnapping. These are human beings that are dying every day. What can the International Federation do about this? If we, the country, cannot handle the situation, what will they do for us? Thank you.
Mother Zainab, I believe you got her question.
Yes. You said what are the international body doing against banditry in Nigeria and against kidnapping? Now, apart from, I want us to look inward now before going outside, thinking about the international bodies. Inward in Nigeria, presently there's been some measures to ensure that banditry is nipped in the bud and kidnapping is nipped in the bud. Those things might not be totally effective right now, but they are still, there are things that they have been achieving positive results. The results might not be as, as high as what we expect, but things are still in order. And one of the things that they have employed, or things are getting there, we are going to get there, let me say that. And one of the things that our government has employed is the use of dialogue with these people that are constituting this nuisance and people who are perpetrating this injustice. You see that some time ago, there was a dialogue with the head of these bandits, the head of the bandits, and they released some and they left some. And after some time, they released others. So the peace talks about with these people too. Now, if you look at the international scene, I can say that there is little that the international community can do at the moment. And this is because every country has this thing called the principle of sovereignty. Sovereignty is that everybody can think for themselves. We have our own boundary. The state, we have a state. And if our state, as Nigeria, this nation, if our nation is not calling on international bodies for help, international bodies cannot become meddlesome interlopers and come and interfere in Nigeria's security situation. But be that as it may, we have some supplies from the United Nations Children's Fund, that's UNICEF. The UNICEF have been working to protect children during these conflicts, this violence, or during kidnapping, including children who have been kidnapped. So sometimes the UNICEF officers, you see them in the far north, they also provide psychosocial support and advocate for the return of people who have been kidnapped. Then the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, they've been taking, they are taking particular interest in addressing the root cause of banditry and kidnapping, because they know that banditry and kidnapping affects the governance. It makes the governance weak, and it affects opportunities, economic opportunities in a country. And also there's been Peace and Security Council under the African Unions, which they are also, some time ago, they made a statement condemning banditry and kidnapping in Nigeria. They're also making efforts. Also, on the international actors, we have the United States. The United States recently provided military aid and training to our Nigerian security forces here. Then the EU too, on the larger sense too. I've answered the question.
All right, thank you very much, Mother Zainab. I believe she got you loud and clear. Okay, so let's make progress. Our time is winding up gradually. Jeremiah T. Uhange, unmute your T. Uhange. Please, with our questions, please. Jeremiah T., you have the mic.
Okay, thank you.
Please speak to the microphone.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Zainab Shitu Adenuga.
Good evening, sir.
I appreciate your presentation this evening. Yes, I'm joining from Nigeria. And my question goes this way.
Voice now. Okay.
Let's move
on.
Hello, okay. Hello.
Can't hear you.
Are you with me? Hello?
Yes, please go on.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
I said my question is, how can diplomatic efforts face...
Okay. Okay, Jeremiah, just try it again. Unmute your mic now. Jeremiah, unmute your mic and try again, please. Jeremiah, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I said, my question is, how can diplomatic efforts, peacekeeping missions, and conflict resolution mechanisms be strengthened to prevent and resolve conflicts, especially now that the global peace appeared threatened by wars, insurgency, poverty, inequality, and environmental degradations, and the like? Thank you. Did you get my question?
Yes, I think to an extent.
Okay,
if I didn't get it, I can say it again. But what I got is that how can diplomatic efforts be strengthened to resolve conflict during insurgency? Is that it?
Yes, especially now that the global peace appeared to be threatened by wars, insurgency, poverty, and inequality.
Okay, so the diplomatic efforts that can be used to strengthen conflicts during insurgencies are, first of all, the channels of communications must be opened. Diplomacy can help establish communication channels between government and insurgent groups. Then also confidence building measures. There must be some actions that demonstrate willingness to reduce tensions and to create a more conducive environment. And such confidence building measures can include probably prisoner releases, ceasefires, scaling back, probably scaling back of military, telling them, oh, the military would not move towards this area. So because of that, don't worry, we are trying to open dialogue and so as to reduce insurgency. Then also we have to see that we have to address the root causes of all this. And by addressing the root causes, we understand the grievances. Diplomacy can help identify the underlying causes of insurgency, such as poverty that you mentioned, marginalization, even political exclusion. So understanding the grievances, power sharing agreements. How do we come together? By talking to the insurgent groups. This let us come together and see how there can be a sense of alienation, how there can be an inclusive government, even if in the long run it is not actually met. But in cases of insurgency, these are desperate times, and desperate times require desperate measures. Thank you.
All right, Madam Zainab, thank you very much for your response. Adiremi, please, let's be fast with the question.
Thank you. Thank you very much. My name is Adiremi Adrinkomi from Lagos, Nigeria. For us in the advocacy sector, we often say that peace is not really the absence of conflict, but peace is the presence of equity, fairness, and justice. My question is, when does diplomacy start? When a situation has not degenerated into conflict? When we have a situation of peace and we are trying to maintain the peace, can diplomacy come in at that point, or we have to wait until things broke down to conflict before we make use of diplomacy as an instrument of settlement? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that question. And I remember that in my lecture, I said that aside from the fact that diplomacy is employed when things actually break down or when war starts, diplomacy can be employed before it starts. It can be used as a powerful tool before a conflict starts. And I remember that I gave an example. It can be as small or as little as some people, like our military officers, saying to other parties, oh, put your troops very close to our border. I hope there is no problem. By saying that, if there's a problem, let's say that a particular nation is preparing to go to war with the other nation, both parties can do that diplomatic tactic to sit down and talk and say, yes, we're actually angry at you. We saw that if you are infiltrating our land, you are doing this and that. So it can come in before. Doesn't have to come in. In fact, it is better, it's more effective when it comes before. It becomes a more effective technique when it comes before, because it helps party to be able to prevent escalation. It fosters dialogue. Parties can come together to say, okay, this is what you are doing, this is what you are doing, what are the control measures we should bring into place. Then it also manages tension. When it comes before, it manages tension and it opens channel of communication before things degenerate to the extent that both parties will not want to talk again. We are starting it now before we become enemies. So it can be started before conflict starts. I hope I'll be able to answer your question, sir.
Thank you. That's perfect. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Zainab. Who is the next person? Olu Johnson. Olu Johnson, unmute your mic.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, ma.
Good evening.
Thanks for your presentation. Because I'm an admin officer, but I'm working with a security company anyway, a private security company. But my administration here is that after this course now, do we have any internship that we can do so that we can have more practical and more experience in this field of peace and security, and also about the international leadership that we just talked about? Do we have any means that we can work with other companies so that we can have an internship that will make us to really know what to do should in case if there's any opportunity? Thank you, sir.
Okay, sir. I don't think I'm in the best position to answer your question, but I believe the course instructor would get back to you as regards that. I'm not aware of any course you can take, although I know some universities take courses in, take some of these courses, but I will leave it to
Madam Zainab. Yes, Madam Zainab. Just hold on. Let me get your question again, sir.
His question is, are there internships he can do? Are there internships or courses he can take?
Okay. Yes. All those ones, the courses, higher level courses, internship that can be done are coming on the pipeline. Don't worry. The same way you got the information about this and you are partaking of it, the same way you're going to get that information. Okay? All right, let's take the next person, Hafsat Modibo. Hafsat Modibo. Unmute your mic. Hafsat Modibo, unmute your mic. Is it there? Not there. Okay. Messiah.
Hafsat is there, sir. Hafsat is there.
Unmute your mic.
Hafsat is there, sir. Hafsat is there.
Okay, Hafsat. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, good evening. Good evening, sir. Good evening, Madam Zainab.
Hafsat, go ahead.
I'm Dr. Hafsat Ibrahim Modibo. It's a nice paper presented. Please, about this diplomacy issue, I'm speaking from Nigeria. About this diplomacy issue, I want us to look inward. Sorry, let me say something small about that Ghana guy that asked question, if I may add. I think he said, how will it be useful in his place of work? Maybe we should add to him that he can submit his certificate by the time he gets it here to his place of work, so that it will be add to his CV. And they may recognize it there in his field, and it will add to his substance. Maybe when they are looking for people that can do some things like that. So let me come back to myself. Please, Madam Zainab, there is something that is worrying me inward inside our country. The role of this media, the way they are exhibiting or discharging their functions. You see that when they go to the field, we normally have casualties on both the civilians and our security agent, but you just see that the media keeps on blowing whatsoever that happens on the field like that. I'm sorry to say this, like there are some pictures that you cannot even view, but they will put it there. And these people, they have families, they have all this. So how are we going to deal inwards with media propaganda? Because you spoke about misinformation. How are we going to deal with it? Is there any way that we can deal with it? Because it's it worries me a lot, and I don't know how to go about it. Maybe At least since we are on this time. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
How to deal with media issues.
Yes, sir. Media propaganda. Yes, media issue, especially in relation to our security agents.
Right?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Noted. Mother Zainab.
Yes, thank you very much, ma. The media, they sell sensational news. And because of that, it creates more problems for us. You said that it bothers you. It bothers me a lot because what bothers me more is the way our media go about, sharing this information. Most of these informations are not even correct, especially now that we are in the age of social media. Anybody can just go up, own a blog, and start, misinforming people. You realize that there was this particular, when at the beginning of the Israel-Palestine war, the media shared that about 100 babies were killed. And as a result of that, CNN carried it, the United States carried it, so many, media outlets carried it all over the world. And this misinformation went on for about 2 weeks. What leaders were carrying this information for about 2 weeks? It was later on that they found out that 100 babies were not actually killed. It was just from the media because they wanted to sell their papers or they wanted to sell their news just for clicks and comments. So bringing this issue back to Nigeria, there has been works. I know if I talk about this now, a lot of people will say, no, they should not control the media, but the media needs to be controlled. There's a popular saying that freedom of speech is not freedom after speech is not such. Now, the thing is that there should be a form of control whereby there should be a law to control the media. Control in the sense that to ensure that the media do not share news that are unverified or news that could escalate things. Look at what is happening in UAE countries. When they are in, for example, recently there was a natural disaster that happened there. And the people, they gave a clear warning to people not to share those pictures online. And people who shared those pictures online were arrested. Of course, the people that shared it were not their own citizens. Their citizens were made to understand the law. So we should have something in place like that in Nigeria. The last time they were talking about trying to control the social media space, a lot of people came out to say, no, they're trying to control people, but it is important. It is important. We have a Cybercrime Act in Nigeria, and this cyberbullying is also part of it. So if these measures are put in place, the media will not misinform people and it will not create a feeling of mistrust amongst people. So I understand your worry. What worries you worries me too, ma. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you for
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Zainab. My name is Mina from Nigeria. I just want to ask a brief question. Looking at the case study of Ukraine, Russia, looking at the case study of Palestine and Israel, as a global peace expert, what do you think will have been your suggestions in ensuring the crisis, the conflict do not escalate to this level? And most importantly, you are seeing clearly what happened yesterday, so the battle line is already drawn. What do you think you can advise to see that we don't get to have a third world war, even though many still haven't come to terms with that? Thank you.
Well, like I said earlier on, the channels of communication must be opened. People need to start talking. People need to come together to talk, to bridge the gap. That's the first thing. If we have warring parties or parties who intend to go to war, if they do not talk, then they would eventually get to that warring stage, to that conflict stage. So with the little knowledge I have about the Palestine and the Israel war, there's been a lot of talks in the past. So it is more complicated than what you and I see on the social media. It's a very, very complicated situation. And some people would even refer it to as a genocide. That is they want to ethnically cleanse a community. But not to take any side here, I believe that the peace talks, this thing has been happening for more than 90 years now. And so there were peace talks before. But the peace talks were not effective because of some ideological. Doesn't mean that totally peace talks or negotiation will not work. I believe that the parties were not willing to negotiate. They were not willing to make some negotiations to bend in any way. If parties are willing to bend, peace will be achieved and conflict will be reduced to the barest minimum. So the first thing is parties should open the communication. Also, parties should ensure that skilled diplomats, people who are skilled in this, it's not anybody can decide to, dabble into international peace talks and security. We have people who are in talking to both parties, arriving at agreements, arriving at good conclusions. So that's what I think can be brought forward first before to nip in the bud conflicts.
All right, thank you, Mother Zainab. I believe Dr. Mina got your response loud and clear. Okay, let me take some few persons more. Daniel Okewu, your microphone is not on. Clifford Azadi, unmute your mic. Clifford Azadi.
Hello, good evening to everybody.
Good evening,
Thank you, Madam Zainab. Thank you. My question is, I believe some time ago, I stand to be corrected anyway, some time ago, the heads of ECOWAS nations instituted peer review mechanisms in place. I want to ask, how is this peer review mechanism helping peace building in the sub-region, especially in this era of heightened tension and conflicts? Hello?
I didn't get your question. Can you ask again?
My question is, sometime in the past, the heads of ECOWAS nations instituted peer review mechanisms in place. I'm asking, how is it helping peace building in the sub-region, especially in this time of heightened tensions and conflicts?
Okay. Now, you know that ECOWAS is consists of countries in Africa. Now, there has been some, like I said before, Nigeria is a party to some of these talks that are our military men and In addition to that peer review, there's a humanitarian response mechanism, there's been relief fund, there's been coordination system to ensure that peace is achieved and conflict is not looked into. So these mechanisms are in place and they are working. The extent to which they are working is what is in doubt. Their effectiveness is what is in doubt, but the mechanisms are working. But I want you to look at war in a very international I want you to look at it with an international eye. Let me use it that way. Yes, with an international eye. Even sometimes war is more than what we are saying. War is big. Despite the fact that there might be some things that ECOWAS is doing, some things member states are contributing, it might still not be as effective as parties putting down their weapons and coming to round table and sit. So it has been, the mechanisms is still in place, but the extent of its enforcement or of its effectiveness is what that cannot be ascertained at the moment.
Thank you.
We can't hear you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Zainab, it's like you are not close to your microphone.
I'm here. I'm here. Can you hear me?
All right, welcome back. I believe you've answered as that. Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Thank you.
I believe we have to draw the curtain here. But before we do that, I want to special everyone who stayed till this very hour and also going through some chats from the chat box. This meeting was not scheduled we have not been following because I read now that complaining that meeting 24 hours notice. It's part of the flyer that you received leading you to your various WhatsApp classes that there is going to be Zoom, okay? And the notice has been there. But one important thing is that anytime you come, you should be able to know if the Zoom meeting is being recorded. And we have always recorded meetings like this and made the recording available, okay? All right, so Zena, we want to really appreciate you for your time tonight. The leadership of Plage Metaverse really appreciate you for the wonderful job done tonight. Once again, on behalf of the leadership and management, we want to say thank you very much. God bless you. And for every one of us who took part in this session tonight, I believe we have learned one or two things. And for those of us who are civil servant or working class, either in the public or private sector, apply the knowledge. Don't just get the knowledge and sit idle with it. No, it is in application, it is in practicing what you have learned that you become a master. Like someone said, showcase what you have learned by imputing the knowledge into your CV and profile. You can speak to just 5 persons in your department, 10 persons in your department. They might have an issue tomorrow. You say, Mr. XYZ, Mrs. XYZ, give us a talk on this subject matter. Let's go back and meeting. And by the time you do it over and again, you see that you become a master of it. I believe we are going to do something and change so many narratives. Once again, thank you very much for taking part in the international leadership and international peace and security course. For those of us who came in late, like I said earlier on, you are going to get the record of this Zoom meeting. Thank you and have a very wonderful night rest. You can exchange greetings for now, and we call it a quit.
Thank you.
For all our guest speakers, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate
Thank
you.
you, everybody.
Thank
Thank
you so much.
you. Thank
Everybody,
you.
thank
Okay.
you.
Okay.
Thank
God bless
you.
you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, everybody.
God
Big
bless
thank
you.
you. We
Everyone.
appreciate your
Thank you.
trainings.
Good night. Thank you.
Yeah, Ghana.
Chance.
Thank you.
Zainab,
Thank you, Niger
Speaker,
brother.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
speakers, we appreciate
Thank you very much.
Bye.
God bless you.
God really
Brother.
appreciate. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Really
Much. Thank
appreciate.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Talk
much.
now.
you.
You
Thank
can talk now.
Thank you very much for today.
We appreciate you so
Very
much.
educative, especially Mr. Zainab explanation is very, very
Everybody.
Good night. Good night.
Lecture.
Thank you so much, sir.
Lecturers.
Good night. Good night.
you.
Thank you,
Everybody
everybody.
have
Have
a
a good
great
night.
time. See you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Again.
Appreciate God. Thank you. Thank you. God bless.
Thank you from this end.
Thank you.
Appreciate you very, very much.
Love you all.
Good night. Thank you all. Thank you all. Thank you and good night.
We do 6 a.m.
Members of the
All this one
house.
just